sure you're ready?
I'm ready.
Are you ready?
I'm ready.
Are you ready? So you're just going to start with opening up the bottle of water?
I'm thirsty.
You're thirsty, huh? Well, I think it's time. It's time because it's Wednesday at 8 p.m. Central Standard Time.
Howdy,
and that means y'all, wait a minute. Oh my gosh, I didn't turn down my phone volume there. Let me fix that.
Gracious.
Yeah, let me fix some things here because what in the world is going on? So hello, everybody. Glad you're here. Glad you are hanging out with us on this fine Wednesday evening.
Yeah,
if you are from the Midwest, East West, East Coast, I bet some of you got some snow. We got a little bit. It was kind of disappointing.
I thought there would be a little bit more the way they were talking.
Yeah, I always, whatever they say, I generally just cut it down by half.
Pretty much. That's a good bet.
That's what I do. So yeah, that's kind of how we roll with it. So glad you're here. Hope you're doing okay. Hope you didn't have to shovel too much. I'm sure there's a few sore backs, maybe like a bum shoulder, and your trick knee might be acting up a little bit.
Got a couple of those.
Yeah, if you're, you got a couple trick knees?
Yeah.
I've got 4 trick knees. Yeah, it's true.
Overachiever.
I know. I have a lot of trick knees. So plan tonight is we don't have a big plan. We don't have a big topic to talk about. We're going to be just talking fish, answering your questions, doing that kind of thing.
Yippee.
See some people get 10 to 12 inches.
Yeah,
Noelle said that she got, that's 6 inches and still coming down. M&C Aquatics, it left us by about midday, and it was so weird because one of our kids had school. The middle school did, and then the high school was like, no, we're gonna just not have it.
Canceled it last night.
Yeah, I was like, come on, man, at least see what it's gonna be like in the morning.
What the heck?
But whatever. So that's the story there. So things going on this week so videos we've done on Primetime Aquatics on Monday. That was a video I have been wanting to do for an extremely long time.
Yeah.
And that is the Mbuna versus the peacock cichlids. That was a lot of fun. And I think partially the reason why I wanted to do that so much is it's one of those things where Mbuna get such a bad rap, and they are, everybody thinks they're so extremely aggressive, and they can be, and they certainly shouldn't be mixed with community fish. But at the same time, I have historically found it a little bit more difficult to keep peacock tanks, because often what happens is you get those male peacocks and they're just going crazy and they're picking each other off, and they get a little rougher on one another, I think, than some of the Mbuna do, especially if the Mbuna don't look similar. So I was really happy we could do that video. And then today on the small scape, what was your situation, your story?
Oh, yeah, I rescaped one of your tanks for platies. Peppermint platies are so beautiful.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I used just a single plant.
Yeah.
Like not just one, but a single type crypts.
Single type crypts, huh?
Crypts.
Well,
that's
cool. Yeah, and it was a cool tank, and I really like what you did with it, and I love the platies. So, hold on? We got someone saying, Amanda saying, is it low res or is it just me? Well, I hope it's just you, but if we have a low res issue, I would love to hear about it. But it looks like on all of our devices, it's coming through just fine. So maybe things are lagging a little bit on your local area with the internet.
Oh, or with the
that could be. So, Delta Charlie, new mics. Okay, so yeah, we should probably address that right away because it's pretty obvious.
Pretty weird.
One of the things that, we mentioned this in the beginning of the year, we were trying to upgrade and update a bunch of stuff. And so we got another camera for the members' videos and for your Container Joy, just because we really wanted to up the video and audio quality for the members only videos, because it's more vlog style. So I needed a smaller vlog type camera. The second thing was I wasn't happy with the audio situation. We still have some dialing in to do. This is new equipment. I'm sure we're going to have to do some stuff. But I wasn't happy with the audio in the voiceover work that we do, especially for the species profiles and the live streams. And so we spent some funds. And generally what we do is, the super chats and stuff that come in the stickers, we kind of set that aside off to the side, and then we try to reinvest it back in the channel, just like we did with the members only video income, as we try to invest that back and make it better for everybody else. So hopefully as we get the audio dialed in, it's going to be a nicer experience for you. At least, try to cut out some of the background noise, try to, as I figure out the settings and everything. So yeah, that's the story there. But anyway, yeah, so we did the cichlid video on Monday in Boona versus Peacocks. On the small scape today, you did the platy rescape. And if you haven't seen that, I highly recommend it. It's a cool tank. Tomorrow we've got on Primetime Aquatics members only video, I went and got a bunch of fish. I think I mentioned this last week. And so you're going to see some of those fish, and some of them, let's see, one of them I've never heard of before. I didn't know this fish existed, and then I found out it actually made the cover of a magazine not too long ago because it's yet to be described, but I found them. And so we've got some cool stuff that we brought in. And then on your second channel, Container Joy, you just got that video all wrapped up for tomorrow. So that's going to be a fun little thing. So if you're not...
It made you mad.
It made me mad.
Yeah.
Why did it make me
Because
mad?
I was using certain materials. We won't. I was using certain materials where you're like, what are you doing that for?
Yeah. Yeah.
Well.
Yeah, we'll see. I guess it was worth it. Friday, we'll have a video coming out on Primetime Aquatics, and quite frankly, I'm not sure which one is going to be coming out on Friday. And then the small scape, you'll have a video out on Saturday. So that's the story with the videos. Where we're going to be, just a reminder, and I put a link. I don't know if it's buried yet. I hope not, but I did put a link for the Green Water Aquarist Society swap, and we're going to be doing that on the 13th. It's the day before Valentine's Day. So not this Sunday, but next Sunday, we're going to be down in Joliet, Illinois. So if you're around the area, would love for you to stop by, say hello. We will have the fish that we're bringing for that swap on the website, most likely by Monday at the latest. Highly encourage, if you're going to go, pre-order the fish, because every single time we do a swap, someone's like, "Oh, I saw on the website you're going to have these. Do you have them?" No, they're sold out when the pre-orders happen, or somebody ran in as soon as the swap opened, like, "Oh yeah, I want these fish." So, yeah. So just if you see something and you're going to be there, it'd be better to pre-order it than hope that it's going to be there when you get there. Shella is coming up on the 26th. We are ready to rock and roll with that. It's going to be cool. How many scapes now are we doing? You're doing a bunch, and I don't think we've really talked about that, but you've got a number of scapes that you're doing. So you're part of 2 scaping competitions.
Apparently.
And you're going to be setting up a tank, right?
Yeah.
And what tank is what booth is that going to be in? For your escape. Oaze booth, yeah. So if you're going to Shella, you can see one of her scapes there. So that's the story there.
Yay.
And then one other thing, and then we're going to get to your questions, because let's face it, you guys have questions and we want to answer them. You did a thing, so you've been working on a little project for the channel. A little
I'm always working on a lot of projects. So, this is one of them.
So why don't you show everybody what you did?
Well, first of all, I'd like to say that it's my challenge. It's my desire to make sure that our merch page has some weird merch, some unusual, just really like crazy fun, but useful. So, are you ready?
We're ready. We have the notebook.
The Primetime Aquatics Notepad and pen set.
That's right.
I've been talking about this for years, and you can see there's a logo. I glittered mine, but it doesn't come glittered. Unless, of course, you want me to glitter it, I'll glitter it. And then it's got a little logo on the pen here. That's right. Yes. There you go. For all your note-taking needs.
And what's funny is Mary Page and I, we both had the same idea. Like, oh, well, go ahead and we'll put it down there for everybody. So we just put a link down there. Mary Page did, and I did right at the same time. That's She's on her game. But yeah, so and that actually came from, I think a long time ago, a subscriber suggested, man, it'd be really cool to have a notebook to write down all the stuff, either from the live streams or from the videos, and just write some notes. Or one of the things that we were doing, especially early on, is we would note the water parameters of our fish tank. So we would note, okay, is there any ammonia, nitrite? Usually that goes to 0 after a few weeks, but okay, what's the nitrates like? What are the temperatures like? How are the fish doing? Just making little notes. It's kind of fun to go back and see, and it can be especially helpful when there is a problem, to see if there's anything going on there. So so that's the story there. We got a new thing on the website for you. So hope you enjoy it. So let's. You have anything else you want to mention before we get into the Q&A?
No.
The answer and question.
Nope.
The questions and hopefully answers. So yeah, Mary Page mentioned best way to get our attention is to put the @Primetime Aquatics in front of your question, because then it highlights it in orange for us. We can see it a little bit easier, makes it a little bit easier to recognize, hey, there's a question here. Let's take a look. So first off, thank you very much, Fish Fan, 20 gallon long. Appreciate the super chat.
Thank you.
I hope you had a great meal with dessert. Just wanted to pop in and say thank you for your encouragement and support. Here's some pizza money for you. Thank you very much. Fish Fan 20 gallon long is definitely feeding us. Yeah, so where did we go? Oh, yeah, so we went to this place. It's in Wheaton, Illinois. It's called Carol's Garden. And I don't know, but we went there this weekend. So thank you for that, because that was a super chat.
It was.
And we just like it there. It's kind of like imagine it's got like a menu similar to maybe like a Denny's or something like that. It's got everything. It's one of those restaurants that have just like everything, but it's really good. So it's not Denny's quality. It's better. Mm-hmm. It's better, different. Yeah, but it's a really good, wonderful little place.
It's like the old Greek restaurant that has everything on the menu. I grew up by like an Omega, and I forget the other ones, but it has everything on the menu, and their waitresses and the waiters are just so nice, and it's just really great.
Yeah, so great. Thank you for that.
Yes, thank you.
Oh my gosh, Tyler said 28 inches in Massachusetts. Now that would be fun.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, I would like that. We were just talking today, like, it'd be really cool if we woke up tomorrow and there's like 3 feet of snow on the ground. Just because.
Wait.
What?
What did Noel said? Best part was waking up at 3 a.m. to shovel out.
You had to shovel at 3 a.m.?
Oh,
that stinks.
Gosh.
That's not cool. That is not cool at all.
Nope.
All right, let me see here. Spark plug. If I'm running hang on back on my 75, 1 Oscar. I have 2 Penguin 350s and 2 large sponge filters. Would it be beneficial for me to swap the 2 hang on back for a canister? Thank y'all for everything you do. Well, thank you. That's a great question. So I'm running hang on back on my 75. So, okay, so you've got the 2 Penguin 350s, and I've done that exact setup before. You've also got the sponge filters. You're thinking about, hey, should I just switch to a canister filter? Well, there's advantages and disadvantages to that. And so obviously the couple of advantages to switching to the canister filter is, one, you're not going to see all the filtration, right? So you're not going to see the sponge filters anymore. You're not going to see the hang on back intakes anymore. You are most likely going to get better water circulation, right? Because your intake and your return are going to be on separate ends of the 75, and it's going to be quieter. All right, so all of those things are definite advantages. I don't think you're going to gain anything in terms of just raw filtration power, either nothing's going to change in your mechanical filtration, so pulling stuff out of the water, because you're running so much filtration already. And certainly nothing is going to change in terms of biological filtration, because those 2 large sponge filters plus all the media and the hang-on backs, that's a ton of surface area, and I'm sure it's not even being thoroughly utilized with just 1 Oscar in the tank. Therefore, what you're going to potentially have to deal with then is the fact that now you've got to maintain a canister filter. And I personally despise that. In fact, of all the filtration methods there are, when it comes to maintenance, I really don't like maintaining canister filters. It's my least favorite filter on the face of the earth to maintain. Even a sump would be easier, because at least the sump, you can put the sump sock on the, as it flows down into the sump, and that catches most of the grime. Then you got the filter pad right under that, and that catches the rest. It's like, okay, that takes 3 seconds to change that out. A canister filter, you have to pop it all. First of all, you have to turn it off. You got to drain the water out of it, at least out of the hoses, or at least make sure it doesn't wind up all over the place. And, a lot of times those canister filters are kind of big and bulky and heavy, and you're yanking that thing out from under the tank, and you're popping the lid off, and you're trying to get all that nasty filter floss and all that stuff and put it all back together and seal it back together and hope that it doesn't leak. And canister filters, at least the ones that I've had, eventually all of them had at least some type of leak to it. It didn't seal completely solid. So I'm sure a lot of you have had canister filters and haven't had that issue, but I always have. So I avoid canister filters at all costs. I'm not saying they don't have their place, and I'm sure a lot of you like them, and that's cool. That's cool. It really is. But for me, it's just not something I'd want to do. Now, I will say, for 1 Oscar, that's a lot of filtration. I mean, you're not going to be fully utilizing all the filtration you have as it is. So for me, a couple of Penguin 350s on there. You got one on each side. That's perfect. I mean, do you need the sponge filters? Probably not. If you want them there because they're housing some beneficial bacteria, and maybe you're going to throw those sponge filters in a new tank just to get them seeded with beneficial bacteria, or you want the backup in case something happens, that's totally understandable. But I only had a few canister filters in the last few years, and I took them all out and just replaced them with various hang-on bags, sponge filters. Internal canister filters I don't mind as much because they're still easier to clean than the external ones. So there's my long-winded answer. What do you got over there? You got anything? Have you been doing your job? Okay.
I do. This is from some dude.
Some dude.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
How many clown plecos can I put in a high-tech 40-gallon breeder with BBA problems? Been there. I may have to do a blackout as the BBA isn't dying from spraying H2O2 multiple times.
So in a 40-gallon breeder, I wouldn't hesitate to put 8 to 10 clown plecos in there. I mean, they're not very big, and they don't get very big. I've had clown plecos, in our 75. Like I've told this story before, but they stay small. I mean, 3-4 inches
cute.
Max.
They're fun.
They tend to be pretty reclusive, so you might not see them a lot. Although the one upstairs
in the kitchen,
that tends to come out more often,
yeah.
maybe because it just feels more comfortable.
It's a special moment when you get to see them.
It is. Mm-hmm. But I wouldn't hesitate to put 8 to 12 in a 40-gallon breeder. Now, the question is, however, are they even going to bother with the black beard algae? And I don't necessarily think they will. The best potential fish for that is probably going to be the Siamese algae eater. So I might opt, instead of the clown plecos, I might, in a 40-gallon breeder, I wouldn't, although they can be a little rough on one another. Maybe just start with one, and they can get pretty big too. See if it puts a dent in it. But if you're telling me the blackbeard algae is not going away even with the hydrogen peroxide, part of it is when it comes to blackbeard algae, I don't fear it. I have it in some of our tanks. We have it in the 150. We have it in one of the planted 75 gallons. We have it throughout one of our 125s. And I would say it's most pervasive in the bottom 125 across from your nano nook, where we've got 2 Mascajeros Vieja. We have some silver dollars. I think we have 3 or 4 bristlenose in there, which they're not going to eat the blackbeard algae. It's been in there from a very early time. I think within 3 months of setting that tank up, we started to see it. But I never freaked out about it, because what I did is we have 2 Fluval 3.0 lights on there. I turned down the intensity a little bit because we don't have any plants in that tank. So there's nothing in there that's going to compete with the blackbeard algae for nitrates, which is something you could consider if you haven't already done it and you have the ability to, putting something like hornwort or Salvinia or something that grows pretty fast, water wisteria, water sprite, see if it can outcompete the blackbeard algae. But we don't have anything in there because traditionally we've always had fish in that tank that will eat plants. Like right now we got all these silver dollars, and they're going to polish off just about anything we throw in there. So what I've done is we just make sure that the lighting is not super intense. It's on for 9 hours a day, but we're also really controlling our nitrates. And because of that, because we're keeping them around 20 parts per million, it's there, but it doesn't overtake everything, and it doesn't have a chance to grow out of control. So that's how we handle it.
So Jenny says that she misses snow. We just have falling iguanas here.
I saw that in Florida. Yeah, iguanas, because they're cold-blooded, when they get cold, if they're up in the trees, their metabolism completely shuts down. And
oh my gosh, literally?
Yeah, that's a real thing.
I had no idea.
They're dealing with it right now. In fact, I saw on the internet, the World Wide Web today, that there was actually an alligator, and it had a fish in its mouth, and the temperatures got really low, and it was just sitting there outside of a lake with the fish in its mouth, but it wasn't doing anything. It was more or less just in like shutdown mode.
Wow.
So, yeah. Let's see here. Raymond says, hey, the volume needs to go up, guys. All right, well, let me fix that.
Oh boy, you may be sorry you said that.
Hold on just a second here. Let's see what we can do with that situation. All right, hold on. Let's do this. And we'll do this. All right, so I adjusted the volume. Let's see if that works out any better.
Testing.
Yeah, I mean, that's the kind of stuff we want to know. You know,
That's
if
right.
it's way too quiet, then we'll fix it. So Raymond, I want to hear from you, my man. Is it better now? I turned it up
Worse?
about
The
20%. Yeah, now it's like, no, it's
my
really
gosh.
bad. It
Shut
sounds
up.
horrible. All right, let's see here.
Matthew does stuff.
What's
Hello, I'm late because I forgot it was Wednesday. Don't feel bad because I literally forgot to wake up this morning.
Yeah, you did. You're like, you
I was
asked
like-
me, like,
No, I said, because I had to tell my work peeps this. This was really funny. I cracked my own self up. I woke up. You woke up first. And I was like, why are you up already? And he's like, I always get up now. And I'm like, wait, why am I not up already?
yep,
It just happens, you know?
it's craziness.
It happens.
Hey, thank you very much, Tesla Killdozer, for the super chat. Appreciate it. I'm in Valparaiso, Indiana, near Chicago, and we got about a foot of snow today, looking at getting more overnight.
Wow.
I mean, depending on how you look at it, that's cool. I mean, I'd be happy with a foot of snow, but
Yeah.
that didn't
got.
happen. Maybe 3 to 5 inches. It wasn't a lot. It was not. It was very
It was
disappointing.
pretty. It was really pretty this morning. I just wanted
Yeah.
to go out and walk around.
But when you like big weather events, that it's not all that impressive. Jerry's Fish Room, welcome to becoming a primetime prime timer. Glad you're here. Thank you for being here. Andy, appreciate the super chat. Thank you very much. What do you think about discus in a 65-gallon planted tank? I got a 65-gallon for $5 at an estate sale. That's cool. I like the height and width, but feels short. It is a little short, right? Because a 65-gallon is the same as a 40 breeder. It's just taller. I think you couldn't do a big giant group of them. I think you could keep some in there for a bit of time until you're ready to move them out, maybe to a larger tank. Maybe you want to do a 6-foot tank, like a 150, like a 6-foot 150 is a really nice thing. You could do the 4-foot 150 as well, but you're right. It's a little bit, being 3 feet, it's not going to necessarily be ideal for them long term, maybe, but certainly as a grow out and they buy you a little bit of time, if that's what you wanted to do with some smaller discus. It's got the height. Those 65 gallons are very tall tanks, so I don't think that's going to be an issue. So cool. Bonnie, thank you very much for the super chat.
Aw, hi,
Glad
Bonnie.
you're here. Leo, thank you for the super chat. Hi, you two. Love your channel. Well, thank you very much. Glad you're here. Do you guys dose your nano tanks with fertilizers? If so, how often and how much?
No, and not really.
Yeah, and it's something we talk about a lot because I think it's one of those things. Then Joanna sounds louder than Jason. Okay, hold on.
Really?
Let me.
That's unusual.
Well, that is
Usually-
unusual. Let me
Usually
turn you
I'm
down
told
a
that
little
I'm too
bit
quiet.
because I'm still playing with all these dials and
Mine
buttons
is-
and lights and.
How about if I just move it away a little bit?
No. Just leave it alone because someone else is going to be like,
It's too soft.
yeah,
You're too loud.
okay, but testing 1, 2. Okay, anyway, yeah, one of the things that we talk about a lot is when it comes to the fertilizers, when we initially set up a tank, if we have root feeders, so plants that are going to grow extensive roots, so those are your crypts, your swords, that kind of plant, we will put DIY root tabs in. Right? And if you want to just use whatever you use, that's fine. So we do that initially because the substrate is brand new and it's not going to have any nutrients, it's not going to have any fish waste, it's not going to have any of that stuff going on. So we will put the fish food in that. Or I'm sorry, the root tabs in there. I don't know why I said fish food. We might, if the tank is stocked very lightly and we have a lot of water column feeders, we might put a couple squirts of liquid fertilizer, but that's still pretty rare. So that's only to begin with. Once the tank is stocked normally, like I mention this all the time, but these 4 tanks here are heavily planted and lightly stocked, and the only thing we did was we added root tabs at the beginning and haven't added anything else. And if you notice in those tanks, some of these plants are water column feeders, right? So the Anubias is not extracting nutrients from the substrate. It's not even growing in the substrate.
Yeah.
The Cryptswood would be doing that, but you had Bacopa that was floating at one point, or lightly planted. That's a stem plant that really doesn't feed from the roots either. So, and it's been sufficient. Now, if we start to see the Anubias yellowing out a little bit, I know you had that issue.
I did in the tiny tank, so I did add a little bit.
Yeah. So, but we don't use a lot of plant fertilizers. Now, again, keep in mind, we're not running CO2. That would change things. We are not running plants that are going to be more demanding of us, of our time and attention. So that's us speaking from a perspective of, okay, we're doing a lot of plants that you would find at PetSmart, right?
Yeah.
You've got your crypts,
Common
your
plants.
Anubias, your different types of val, jungle val, corkscrew val, Italian val, Java moss, Java fern, hornwort.
Hydrocodal.
Yep. I mean, it's a lot of stuff that you would typically not have to use high light. You certainly wouldn't need CO2. CO2 always helps, but it's not something that's necessary. So that's what we're doing. Now, if you're running different plants, it might have some slightly different requirements.
Oh, sure.
What else we got here?
Let's see. Jazz says, what kind of rocks or stones would be good to scape? My husband has pictus catfish, spotted and striped Raphael, Buenos Aires Tetras, and a bristlenose.
Nice.
Well, I mean, my favorites are Dragonstone and Cereal. Those would, and they're not overly, like, sharp.
Yeah, you just have to be a little bit careful with those rocks just because the Raphael cats, the spotted and the striped Raphaels, love to just kind of perch on the rocks. So you just have to, if you're going to use that, you have to make sure that there is no sharpness going on there. So we got the Buenos Aires Tetras, bristlenose, pictus cats. Pictus cats are crazy. Those are kind of like they're Cynodontis-like.
They're fun.
I would say the wood is whatever you want it to be. Our striped Raphael cat we've had I think it's the oldest fish in our fish room at this point, is probably going on 14 years old, which is insane.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Wow. I haven't really thought about it in a while, but he likes to just hide out. And I've mentioned this a number of times. At least our Raphael cat has traditionally, what it would do is it would go and find a place under driftwood. And I wouldn't see the thing for months on end. I'd be like, oh my gosh, this thing is going to die. It's not eating. And then it comes out for a few months and it eats like crazy, gets really, 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 really big.
Yeah.
And then it just goes back into hiding again. So they do, at least ours like to hide. So big pieces of driftwood where they can just kind of hide under there, feel comfortable. Same thing with the bristle. Pretty much all plecos would like to have a place where they can kind of just tuck away a little bit. So rocks, I mean,
and you can find some really cool river rocks.
Yeah.
The one in my bear paw tank, that has a lot of character, and it's really just a big giant kind of what I call river rock.
Yep.
Just a very rounded rock.
Yeah, that might be a little bit better for the underbelly of your catfish.
Both,
yeah. What else we got here? Duke Aquarium. Hello. I'm late. You are. And we're making notes. We're going to put your name down on the permanent record.
Jordy.
Yep. Let's see. Dave says, greetings from Milwaukee. Any recommendations on plants for a cooler water native tank? Well,
kind of like a lot of the ones back there.
Well, the native part, so I'm not familiar with native plants, like what they are, stuff from around here. So if you're looking for a biotope type thing, I can't help you there. But almost all plants, most plants that you'd find at your big box stores will do fine in the 60s for the most part, upper 60s, right? So
I thought it was regular plants for a native fish. No? You're going everything native?
Cooler water native tank.
Okay.
Yeah. So most of the plants that you're going to buy, your Anubias, especially your Java moss, probably your Java fern, jungle val, all that kind of stuff is going to run crypts. They'll run fine in the mid to upper 60s. So yeah, I mean, all this stuff here, none of these tanks are heated, and that's pretty much what we've got back there.
Even subwasser tank too.
Yeah, all the subwasser tanks going crazy.
Oh, it's happy.
Yep. Ryan, thank you very much for the super chat. Hey guys, love your channel. It's helped a lot. On a scale of 1 to 10, how hard would you say it is to pull off a female betta sorority? That's a really good question. So I'm sure you saw the video that we did about and if you haven't, check it out. I would say the way most people do it, it's in terms of difficulty, it's a 10. The way most people try to do it. I think the way people tend to have success is they do things a little different probably than what you might just intuitively think. So what I mean by that is the most successful betta sororities that I've seen long term were larger tanks with a lot, and I mean a lot, of female bettas. And so the one I show off in the video, I believe, was a 55 gallon, and there were hundreds, I don't remember the exact number, but there were hundreds of female bettas in that tank. And even then, you run the risk of having certain females get bullied. You just have to keep an eye on it. I kind of think of a female betta sorority as in the same league as an Mbuna tank, an Mbuna cichlid tank, where you know you're going to have a decently larger tank to maximize your success. I know people have kept them in smaller tanks with potentially fewer individuals, but if I were just going to approach it as I want to try to make this as successful as possible, I would have probably a 4-foot tank, you know, a 55 gallon, a 33 long, something like that, and I would put probably 50 to 100 bettas in there, female bettas, and then hope that we don't have a lot of bullying issues. But understand when you do that, and this is the 1 to 10, you know, in the scale of difficulty, I would say this is for someone who's an experienced fish keeper, because you're going to be dealing with some issues. Issue number 1 is you've got a bunch of fish in a tank and you've overcrowded that tank. And so any problems that arise are going to be tremendously magnified. So if you have a filter go down, a heater go down, something happens to your cycle because it's so overstocked, you could lose a lot of fish very, very quickly. If you have any kind of disease outbreak, that could spread very, very fast. So this is a type of tank where I don't think a female betta sorority is well suited for somebody who's not quite, you know, it doesn't have to be like super experienced fish keeper, but certainly someone who's got some fish tanks under their belt because of the overstocking. And the other thing to consider is when it comes to the bettas, you have to balance the fact that you want a decent amount of filtration to handle all of that load, but you also don't want the filtration to be blowing your bettas all over the tank. And so now you're looking at maybe a couple, 2 or 3 hang-on-back filters, or 4 or 5 sponge filters, just in there. You know, the flow isn't crazy, but it's enough surface area to do the biological filtration and hopefully also deal with some of the mechanical filtration. So we don't do betta sororities just because we haven't done it yet, and I'm not sure I want to dedicate that large of a tank to doing that. So we'll see. Yeah. So hopefully that answers some of your questions.
You have to have that backup plan.
Yeah. What else you got?
All right. So let's see. Whips World's given us some weather reports here.
Okay.
Let's see. We got about 1/8 of an inch. That's all you got up north?
That's lame.
But the further south and east I went this morning, it was closer to 5 or 6 inches. Well, you were brave.
Yep.
It must have been beautiful.
I'm sure it was awesome.
Yippee. Oh, and then there is a question here from Shannon Burnett and Ryan.
Cool.
Let's see. Wanting to add something unusual to my 40 breeder. Currently, I have 1 electric blue Acara, 6 Colombian Tetras, 1 gold roseline shark. He hangs out with the Tetras, and 3 bristlenose Plecos. We got.
So the electric blue Acara is the centerpiece, and it's a 40-gallon breeder?
Yeah.
So hold on. So 1 electric blue Acara. We've got 6. How many Colombian?
6.
And then 1 roseline shark, and what else?
3 bristlenose.
3 bristlenose. Okay, so one of the things you might want to consider is trying to add a few more roseline sharks to the situation, because they do like to stay together. So you could do that, keeping in mind those also get to be about 6 inches or so. Other unusual fish. So your largest fish is your electric blue Acara. I don't know if I would do try to add any more, although I don't know, you could probably try something like an angelfish if you wanted to. 1, I wouldn't do more than 1 in a 40 breeder, just because I don't want them pairing up or 2 males to be boxing one another out there. But electric blue Acara and angels have gotten along fine for me. And I said that, you know, unusual.
Green.
Go and check out all of the variety. And it just seems like in the last 6 months to a year, there have been a lot of people out there who are line breeding some crazy angelfish. I mean, there's just all these new varieties coming out. So you might find some angelfish where you're like, oh, wow, I didn't know those were a thing. Those are pretty cool. So you could do something like that. Anything else unusual? I mean, not that that's, I don't know. I mean, like I said, if it were me, I'd probably try to add more roseline sharks to that situation. What else? Like unusual.
Yeah.
We got, and I haven't shown them on the channel yet, and they're really cool. We got some blue bleeding heart Tetras. They will be making an appearance in a tank at some point in the future. Right now, they're
Will
sitting
they have
in
their own
quarantine.
spin-off?
Huh?
Get it? Like they're going to make an appearance, like they're on a
Oh,
show. So will they
yeah.
have their own spin-off?
Yeah,
show?
they're gonna be featured in a pilot here, in the not too distant future. The blue bleeding hearts are really, really pretty fish. They're not cheap because they're not all that common, but that would be one that comes to mind that's a little bit unusual, and you could do, I don't know, you could probably do a dozen of them, but you'd spend a decent amount of money doing it. So that is something to consider as well. In a 40 breeder with that group, I also really like, we brought in red tail boteas, which is a loach. It's basically got the body of a clown loach. So imagine a clown loach. It doesn't get as big. So clown loaches can max out at like a foot. These red tail boteas, maybe you're going to get, I don't know, 5-6 inches out of them. But imagine a clown loach, but it's got a blue body and it's got a red tail and a red dorsal fin. So those are really cool too. And they're goofy. We've got, and again, it's a fish I haven't shown off on the channel yet. I think the members saw them, but we have like a half a dozen in a 40-gallon breeder right now. They're just so goofy. They can be a little shy. So you definitely, hopefully the Columbia Tetras would bring them out. But those are a couple of suggestions. Suzanne says, are you going to be at Shella in Chicago? My gosh, I hope so. That's our hometown. And Shella, Chicago, we don't have any excuses because
we wouldn't.
That's about a 30-minute drive for us as opposed to when we go down to Orlando, which is
2 days.
Yeah, 2 days in the car, but because we like to drive. So to answer your question, yes, as of right now, our plan is to be at all the Aquashellas this year. So that's Orlando this month, Dallas in August, and then the Chicago one in October. We are definitely going to want to go to the OCA in Cleveland, which is usually November.
Yeah,
and then
fun.
I would like to try to check out, if possible, and I don't know if this is going to be possible, but the Triple Crown in Louisville with the ACA and the American Killifish Association and the ALA. That would be a cool one. I haven't been to that. I haven't been to any of those before, and the fact that they're going to have them all together seems like a cool thing to me. So yeah. What else we got here?
All right, so Sam says, hey, I have a 3 to 4 inch tiger Oscar, almost pitch black in color, just a couple of orange dots. Any suggestions to get his color in? My local fish store said it would stay pitch black by this point.
Yeah, that's kind of my opinion as well. The one thing you could try, and I don't know if it's going to work in this case, fish will sometimes change their color based on their surroundings. So if you have a very dark background, you have a very dark substrate, if you really wanted to see if he'd lighten up, and again, I'm not guarantee that he will, you could try to go with a lighter substrate and a lighter background. So if this fish was very dark and it really bummed me out, and I was like, okay, I got a black background and black sand or black gravel, then I might change it to a tan gravel and maybe a slightly lighter, like a dark blue background, and see if that helps. I don't know. Again, I don't know if it is, because Oscars, they can change color, and they do when they get stressed out or when they're, in their, I'm a mean guy mode. They will change colors, as you know, but they don't change as much as some other fish. But I don't think there's anything necessarily that you're gonna be able to do that's gonna change that. All right, let me see here. M&C Aquatics. I want Ultim Angels, hard to find around here. Ultim Angels are cool. They're available in the Chicagoland area, but you're going to pay a lot, and then they're really finicky, so they don't do well. It's just kind of funny. You can find them in the Chicagoland area, but the Chicagoland area does not have water conducive to growing Ultim Angels, which tend to be more sensitive to water parameters, and so you want to get them closer to, those ideals where like definitely pH under 7, and you want lower water hardness, and we're over here like, yeah, our pH is an 8.2, and we're kicking at, not crazy hardness, but 10 degrees KH and GH. Ultim Angels, that's not good for them. Michael says, I took your advice today. At my local fish store, wanted to pick up some angels. Studied tank for 10 to 15 minutes. Notice 3 out of 25 with ick. Boom. That's great. See, and that's awesome. That's really awesome to hear. And you passed on them. And that was very, very smart. And here's the mistake. I would never do this, and I never will. And maybe it makes me sound mean, because I know that some people like to rescue fish, and that's cool. That's really cool. But when you saved yourselves a lot of problems, I would never purposely bring home fish that I know could potentially bring in a disease into my entire fish room. So my concern is I bring in this fish, try to save it, and in doing so, wind up cross-contaminating another tank or 2 tanks or 5 tanks or 80 tanks. And now I'm like, yeah, I was trying to be a hero and save this one fish and wound up destroying hundreds or thousands of, well, in our case, well, I bet we have, I have no idea how many fish we have in the fish room, but 1,000 wouldn't be, yeah, that might be a little high. That might be a little high. I don't know exactly how many, but you get my point. So yeah, it's so important when you're going to a fish store to take your time. Don't never go pick out fish in a rush. And that can be a huge mistake when you go, you're like, all right, we've got 5 errands to run, and then we're going to go ahead. We're going to stop at the fish store at the last stop. We're going to run in there. We're going to pick out some fish. I know exactly what I want, which is good. You should know what you want, do a little bit of research, or at least have an idea of what you're looking for. And then boom, we're going to go because we got to get home. I got to make dinner. The kids got sports, whatever. When you do that, that is the time where you're most likely to make an error in judgment. Maybe pick a fish out you haven't fully researched, or do what Michael's saying, and that is, well, luckily he avoided it, and that is not catching a vital detail. And sometimes that takes time. Where when I go to a fish store, you'll just see me sitting there. I'll be watching these fish, and it kind of stinks because when I go and get fish for the swaps, I'm doing the same thing because I don't want to bring sick fish into our fish room. So I'm watching these tanks, and there have been times where I'm like, oh my gosh, these are the coolest fish I've ever seen. I need them. Look at them. Mm-hmm. And then I look a little closer. Oh, no. And I start to watch. I'm like, oh wow, what's that one doing back there? That one's oh wow, look at that. There's the death shimmy, the death wobble. Why are they there's the spots. And if one fish in a tank has spots, assume they all have ick. And so I'm glad you avoided that problem because it can be brutal for sure. What do you got?
I just had one.
You did?
Dang it. Hold on.
Days.
Let's see. Mountain Greenery. Did Jason enjoy the surprise crypt platyscape? Yes.
Yeah, I did.
I think you liked it, right?
I did like it.
But I didn't see your reaction. Sometimes I'll actually go and try and get your reaction, but I didn't.
No, you didn't get my reaction.
I just asked you later.
Yeah, I went down there, and it was awesome because the way it looked before. That tank has never, since we set up the fish room, that particular tank that Joanna rescaped on her channel, the small scape, that particular tank has never looked good, ever. If you go back to the very first fish room tours that we ever did, it was always a holding / breeding / fry grow out tank. And then eventually we threw some of the gold mystery snails in there. So then they started to breed like crazy. And then the tank just absolutely got destroyed after that because gold mystery snails are great, but they also produced a ton of waste. So basically what you're doing is you're saying, okay, I've got an algae. Let's say I want my gold mystery snails to eat the algae in my tank. They're going to do that. And it's good because they're going to eat the algae, and a lot of those nutrients are going to go to actually growing their body and reproducing and all that stuff. But then they have waste. So you're exchanging some of that algae for waste. And when you've got, 100 or 150 gold mystery snails in a 20-gallon long, it gets messed up pretty quick. So moral of the story is when I went down there and I actually saw the tank, I was like, oh, finally, that tank looks better. And we got a lot we've got to do in the fish room in terms of fixing up some tanks, but that's definitely, step in the right direction.
Yeah.
All right, let's see here. What else we got? Pal Joey, what's up? Hey, guys. Ever go rock collecting at Kankakee State Park? Tons of slate and basalt along with the river. I haven't done that.
No.
But now.
I'm going to write it down.
Where is it?
Kankakee where?
Kankakee State Park. So that sounds like a thing we're going to have to check out. Thank you for mentioning that. You want to tell them?
I do.
Okay.
Pal Joey, that's right.
You cost me money, dude.
That's right. I was like, all right.
You cost me money.
I need the Manchurian candidate. I want to see it. And then I'm on a JFK kick. So I had him order Oliver Stone's JFK. So it's going to take us a few times, because I usually only have well, I don't know if you have
Yes.
more time, but little chunks of time to watch it. But totally excited. We started the Manchurian candidate so far, so
Yeah.
don't tell us how it ends.
Yeah, don't
tell us
say
what
anything.
happens.
It came with a poster too. Maybe that's why it
It
was so
did.
expensive. I'm like, she's like, order that one. I'm like, it's like $30.
Some of them
It's-
are like 100. The
Yeah,
old
it
ones,
was
like
crazy.
the fancy ones.
But I figured, what the heck.
So thanks.
All right, let's see what we got here. Scrolling around.
Okay.
Okay, Stu, what is the biggest fish you've ever kept? That's a good question. Biggest fish? The tilapia. So, Timmy,
Yep.
our, what was it? Oreochromis? No. Was it Oreochromis niloticus? Yeah, maybe it was. Oreochromis niloticus, I think it was a Nile tilapia. It was in our 125, needed a much larger tank, would have probably moved out of the fish room. I was considering giving that to a friend of mine because it really did need a larger tank. So I got these fish, and they were at the GCCA. It was just a regular meeting, one of the regular old meetings. There were 10 of them in a bag. They were not even an inch. And I'm like, all right, what are these things? Let me I'll bring them home. I'll bring them to a swap or something like that. And nobody was buying them. They were BAP. They were Breeder Awards program. And nobody was buying them. Like, okay, I'll buy them for $1. So I got 10 of them for $1. And I put these things in a 10-gallon because they were small. And I'm not kidding you. Within 3 weeks, I'm like, what in the heck? These fish are growing like every single day. So then I grab them and I threw them in the 125. Well, I did end up selling 9 of them, but I kept one because I'm like, wow, this is just a really interesting fish. It's just getting so big so fast. I'm curious now. Yeah, that bad boy, when it finally passed away, it was, so a 125 is 18.5 inches wide, it's 6 feet long, 18.5 inches wide. That fish, nose to tail, was as wide as the tank. So it was at least 18.5 inches, and it was a wide body, but it was the most gentle giant you'd ever see because he was in there with the Oscar and the 125. And if you go back and look at our fish room tours, you'll see him really pretty. We used to breed OB peacocks and stuff in that tank. They didn't eat the fish for the most part. They'd leave him alone. He just was a happy-go-lucky fish. I really liked him. He had big lips. But they basically use them for food in Africa. So, yeah. We used them for pets.
Yep, we did.
How about that?
All right, Slamboy wants to know, how many guppies can you keep with a Jack Dempsey?
Well, you can keep as many as you want. You're going to have 0 left after the Jack Dempsey gets
minus.
Yeah. Put 100 in there, and then you won't have to feed the Jack Dempsey for a while. Jerry's Fish Room. Who is the manufacturer of those tanks, those nano tanks behind you? This is Lifeguard. So Lifeguard, the thing is, we have these 4. We have a bookshelf, 2 bookshelf tanks from them downstairs. We have the other little guy over here, right there. That's a Lifeguard tank as well, but that's a smaller one. I wouldn't put fish in that one. It's too small. And we've got a few others that you still have yet to do. So they got in contact with us because, was it last year or 2020 when we did the rocks from Lowe's? We guys sold them out nationally. So they're like, what in the heck? All of our rocks are gone. And at least that's what we were told. And everybody's come back saying, yeah, all our websites are sold out. And so they contacted us like, oh, thank you so much. And hey, would you like to try out some tanks? And so they sent those. But we really like these ones. These are 8.3 gallon behind us. We have 4 of them set up. It's an all-in-one thing. So it's got the filter in there. They did come with lights, but we took those lights off because we just wanted to have the one strip light there as opposed to having 4 separate ones. And yeah, it's a good tank. You can hide the heater back there. So it's cool. It's cool. What do you got?
Connor, what is the best multi-purpose rock for aquariums with good texture and darker but not black? Well, I would have to say I like both Seru and Dragonstone. Most aquascapers will. There are other kinds, you can get lava rock, and there's other kinds, but those are the top 2. One big difference between them, Dragonstone, is you can smash them really easily with a hammer and make yourself some smaller pieces. If you're like, oh man, this one's too big, smash it up. But you have to clean it really well. You have to clean it way better than you do the Cereus don't, because it's just all the little nooks and crannies of the dragonstone just hides that clay, and even sometimes when you're washing it, it kind of crumbles a little bit, which creates more, and you'll get yourself a nice dark tank for a while.
So, and that's stones with texture?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, okay. I was going to say that one I really like that's dark is just that dark gray. Is it just dark gray river rock? But it doesn't have any texture. But I really like that stuff.
Yeah.
We
usually get it from the
just like a landscaping place. It's cheap. It's like 30 cents a pound, 20 cents a pound.
Yeah, and the good part with that is sometimes, frequently you can have pieces that have like lines, like white lines, like kind of going running through it, maybe little divots and stuff. Yep. Adds kind of interest, but it doesn't really have texture.
Yeah, that's true. It doesn't. Dave from Iowa said he's
Hey,
got
Dave.
a goal. Dave's got a
Okay.
goal.
Really?
His goal is 200 likes.
Oh.
I think we could do that for Dave.
Okay.
Dave's a hard-working dude.
Yeah.
Let's see if we can make it happen.
Hey Dave, how's the new gig?
Yeah.
Are they treating you all right? Hmm?
Hit the like button with a hammer, right in the nail. Phil asks, where do you get the 50-gallon lowboys? So we have two 50-gallon lowboys, one on each side. One of them has the Maltese, one of them has the Mollies, and our purple spot Guppies. We have gotten those from local fish stores, a couple different ones around us. Pretty much, I don't know if I doubt that, well, maybe the PetSmarts and Plecos could order them, but if you've got a local fish store around you they're made by ZooMed. So if you have a local fish store that has an account with ZooMed, they should be able to special order them. So I would just ask them, like, hey, I'm interested in a 50-gallon lowboy. Can you bring them in and see what they're going to charge you? But they're not necessarily cheap for what they are. I think, at least around here, price-wise, they're like $130. And then sometimes you'll find them on sale for like around $100. But most local fish stores should have a ZooMed rep, and they should be able to order them in. John Oliver's here, saying hello. Hey, fish family.
Hey.
Hope everyone is doing well and staying healthy. Well, I hope you're doing well too. Glad you're here.
Too.
Glad you're here. Klaus Aquatics member for 8 months. Thank you so much. Good evening. Good evening. I forgot to report before, but my mini mason jar traps worked. Got lots of overpopulated snails out. It's become my daily routine. I bet it feels good too.
Wow, heck yeah.
It's kind of like cutting the lawn or shoveling in snow. He's like, I just accomplished something. I just made something go away.
Right?
That's cool.
With stuff that I'm sure you already had. Who
Yep.
doesn't have mason jars?
That's cool.
That's cool. Congratulations.
Let's see here. You got something over there?
All right, so Kathy wants to know, do common Plecos eat guppies? I have 2 common Plecos, and I want to upgrade them to 300-gallon Rubbermaid tub. I want to put guppies with the common Pleco.
I don't know. I wouldn't think so. But I don't want to say, oh, they definitely don't, because you get a really big fish that maybe your guppies, for the most part, don't lay on the ground, when they go to sleep. Common Plecos will be active at night, so they usually tend to be resting on something. I don't think they would, but I would never put past a fish, especially if it's huge. And you're talking about 300-gallon totes, which means your common Plecos have probably gotten to be very, very large. And you got little tiny fish. I don't know 100% that they wouldn't maybe take advantage of guppy meat when they have an opportunity. But I also don't think that they're going to be well suited for just like, oh my gosh, they wiped out all of my guppies. But I've never tried that combo, and I don't know anybody who has, so you never know. Horribly wrong.
Oh boy.
What do you got over there?
All right, Delphine, can a pea puffer live happily in a 5-gallon? I would say yes.
For sure.
A single one.
Single.
They don't really go zooming around the tank. They just kind of chill. They kind of hover right around.
Yep. And when they do want to go zoom, trust me, by the time they get from one end of a 5-gallon to the other, like, oh, okay, let me do that one more time, but then that's it. Yeah.
But they do like their plants. They like their plants too.
Felicia says, are we getting pink shirts?
Oh, I was going to wear the other one tonight and I forgot. Because I've got purple. Remember, he gave me a sample of purple and pink. They're kind of similar, and I was going to wear both, and then like you get to see, and then maybe even do like a community chat or a community post, or like pick, like, hey, Which color you
A
want?
poll? You mean, is that what you're looking for?
I was using the wrong terms.
A community
Poll,
chat, huh? We're going to chat about a community with a
gram.
shirt on. And
You
it's
know,
going to be great. Slam boy. Multiple small tanks versus large divided. Well, large divided is going to be cheaper. Other than that, well, all right, let's think this through. Large divider is going to be cheaper, right? Because you're only buying one tank and then you're buying the dividers. If the dividers are not permanent, then you can always go back to your larger tank. And I would advocate strongly for not siliconing the dividers in. I mean, I guess you could, but then getting them out is just going to be more of a pain. If you're using dividers that's going to have a flow through, which you should be, then the other thing you have to consider is if you have fish that get sick, all of those fish in that tank are now exposed to something. But hopefully you're doing quarantining and all that kind of stuff, or you're just doing breeding and you're just dividing the stuff up that way. So you've got that. In terms of filtration, a lot of times people are using the same filtration. You're going to put sponge filters in your smaller tanks, or you're going to put multiple sponge filters in each section of your larger divided tank. So I'm thinking, okay, I got a 20-gallon long. I could do 5 or 4 5-gallon tanks, or I can do one 20-gallon long and just put the dividers in. Either way, you're probably going to run small sponge filters in each one of those divided sections. So it just depends on if you want the ability to go from a large tank to a small sectioned off and then back to a large, then obviously a larger tank is going to be a little bit easier to deal with. Yeah.
All right. Finn wants to know, what is your opinion on a black ghost knife in a 20-gallon when it's on the 4 to 5 inch size?
It'll work at that size for a little while. You're going to need a much larger tank later, right? That's the thing. So
how big do they get?
They get big. I mean, they get big. So yeah, you definitely going to need a larger tank. But a 20-gallon long for a 4-inch is it's gonna buy you months. That's for sure. Yep. What else we got? What you got over there? You got some questions?
Me?
Yeah, you.
The what?
Suzanne, thank you so much for the super chat. Really appreciate it. Nothing to say, just thank you very much. Appreciate that. Too coolie for schoolie. Can Hydra sting the nose of a Borneo Loach? I have, hold on, it's bouncing around me. I have a section of a tank mine is avoiding, and it jumps when it touches one. I'm struggling to feed him without this issue. Yeah, I mean, they do sting. That's the unfortunate. That's why people don't like the Hydra. They kill shrimplets, and they will sting fish. And maybe if it's making it uncomfortable, yeah, he's probably like, I'm not going over there anymore because those things hurt. So it could happen.
Poor kid.
What you got?
Let's see. Guan Song, is it normal to have bacterial bloom to continue for almost 2 weeks in a 20-gallon new tank? I used liquid bacteria at the beginning.
Yeah, I would say that's so. Yeah, it can be normal. And 2, just check your water parameters, because usually when we've had that happen, it's accompanied by either an ammonia, some amount of ammonia registering. I can't even say it. Some amount of ammonia or nitrite, or potentially both. So that's often what happens with that cloudiness. But if you don't have any ammonia, you don't have any nitrite, and you got nitrates that are registering, so your tank is cycled, yeah, you can still have that bacterial bloom happening until your system becomes more balanced. You want to do some water changes. Keep an eye on the fish. Make sure that they're not labored with their breathing. They're not spending a lot of time at the top. They're not piping with their mouth open at the top of the tank. But if your water parameters are okay, it's less of an issue. But if you've got ammonia or nitrite in there, like I said, that's usually my experience. They often come hand in hand. Just keep an eye on that. Also, the liquid bacteria, just make sure it's live nitrifying bacteria, because a lot of these products on the market are not actually live nitrifying bacteria. They call them bacteria starter or whatever, and then you look at the actual thing, and it's like, well, there's no bacteria in here whatsoever. It's basically just a nutrient juice that would, in theory, maybe possibly get bacteria to grow faster, which in my experience it never works. But if you've got live nitrifying bacteria, that's what you use, then that tends to do better. Then the other question, of course, is when we use that, We also have to understand that we still want to be stocking our tank very lightly and very slowly over time, because even though that bacteria is being added to the tank, it's still got to adhere to surfaces, and eventually it's got to grow and replicate and do all that. And it doesn't necessarily do that super fast. The Nitrobacter, Nitrosomonas, and the other types of microbes responsible for nitrification, they don't replicate really, really quickly. So we got to give them time just to adjust. Killer Kitty 08, thank you very much for the kitty sticker. Appreciate it. Very nice. I saw one other one rolling in here. Michael, appreciate the super chat. Thank you very much for being here.
I had one. Where'd it go? Oh, this is from Whip's World. I tried the Guppies with an orange pike cichlid many, many years ago. It went as well as I had put them in with that Jack Dempsey. It was pre-smartphone, and I didn't realize what a pike cichlid was.
Yeah, we learned those things. Yeah, pike cichlids they're cool looking fish. And you had an orange one?
Wow.
That's really cool, because those are not all that common. But oh my gosh, yeah, pike cichlids, they love other fish for sure. Up here it comes Michael with the super chat. Thank you again. And this time, a little question. Can I keep a blood parrot with yellow labs? A lot of people are going to say no, and mostly it's because there's, one's New World and the other ones are African cichlids. That's not necessarily why I would be cautious per se. I would be cautious because of a couple things. One, their diets are a little bit different. I think blood parrots would prefer to have a little bit more meat in their diet. Yellow labs don't, being Mbuna cichlids. Blood parrots can be a little bit belligerent at times, and so early on that blood parrot might decide to chase the yellow labs around. And if it does that, fish have a memory. When they see something that is threatening them, as those yellow labs grow, they're going to be more active. They're going to get larger. So yellow labs, they can max out at 5 or 6 inches or so. And if you've got some more assertive males, even though yellow labs for the most part aren't aggressive for Mbuna, they're still aggressive fish because they're cichlids, African cichlids. So if they decide to turn on that blood parrot, the blood parrot's done. There's absolutely nothing that fish can do to defend itself because of the issues it has with its mouth. So it's not going to be able to fight those yellow labs off. I've seen that happen where a long time ago, this would have been back maybe in the 00s. Yeah. We had a blood parrot in the 75.
Happy.
And it was assertive, to say the least. And then it got to the point where we had to put it in our 150 because it was getting bigger, and it was having a problem with one of the fish in the 75, and I don't remember what it was. So we put it in the 150, and sure enough, we also had some peacocks in that tank. And at first they basically ignored one another. But the blood parrot would occasionally chase one of the larger peacocks around, or one of the haps, and eventually that African cichlid more or less pushed that blood parrot into a cave, and it wouldn't come out. It wouldn't come out to eat. It was like a little puppy. I felt so bad for it. It was so scared, so we had to get it out of there, put it in a different tank. So just be really careful with that, because sometimes it will work in the beginning, and then a year from now you're like, I had to get rid of the blood parrot. It was not, because once they get scared, at least my experience, everyone I've ever had, if they get frightened, they become big babies. Mm-hmm. They won't leave their little secure area. They won't eat.
Yeah.
Yeah. It gets sad.
Sad.
It gets very sad.
From Haven't Seen a Thing, can I put 6 male guppies in the same 30-gallon tank?
Wait.
6 male guppies in a 30-gallon.
That's it?
Mm-hmm.
Sure.
You hit males, all 6 males in a 30-gallon tank.
Yeah, I don't see why not. Yeah.
Still lots of room.
We've had a lot more guppies than that in smaller tanks than that. Mm-hmm. All right, let's see here. We got another super chat coming in. Hold on, my eyes are blending all this stuff together. Guan song? Hope I said that right. If not, correct me. Thanks. Appreciate your answer. Well, thank you very much for the super chat. Thanks for being here.
Mark, I don't know if I thought I saw your questions earlier. I was going to try and get to it. You had the Eco-Complete or the Stratum, and your pH dropped from 7 to 6. Is that right? Because I'm seeing this one. You were thinking that you might chuck it and do sand and start over. I already have soft water here in Oregon. Could he just cap it with sand?
No, it's still gonna buffer the pH down. That stuff is made to buffer down. Okay. And you're right. Being in Washington, your water is on the softer side, so that's why Oregon.
Oregon. It's not Oregon.
It's Oregon. Oregon.
Right? Oregon.
Oregon. Anyway, the point is your water is on the softer side, usually over there in the upper northwest, and that's why it did that. Like if we put that stuff in our tank, it doesn't do anything because our KH is high enough to buffer that. That's why that happened. Yeah, you can pull it out, put sand in, and then you just get an inert sand. Just make sure, most of the pool filter sands, if you want to go cheap, almost all the stuff you buy from the pet store, the top fins and all that stuff, are usually inert and aren't going to adjust your pH. That'll be important for you with the water hardness being so low. Dylan, where did you go, Dylan? Dylan, there it is. I have a planted tank with relatively high ammonia for several days. How is that possible? Shouldn't the water column feeder plants be consuming the ammonia? Yeah, they can be, but it just depends on how much is being produced and how much they can actually consume, right? So obviously right now the issue is there's more ammonia in the tank than the plants can consume. And by the way, aquatic plants would actually prefer that, but we tend to use the aquatic plants to lower nitrate. And the reason for that is once the microbes get established in a fish tank, they're going to outcompete the plants. And I think we just paused.
Mm-hmm.
Hold on.
Reconnected.
We're reconnecting. We're skipping out. We're doing a bunch of things. I feel like... So hopefully you heard that. If you didn't hear the rest of that answer because we paused out there for a second, just let me know. Chris, thank you very much for becoming a Primetime or Primetime partner. I'm glad you're here. Thanks for being here. Got a nice crew of people. I hope you enjoy.
Yeah.
All right, what do we got here?
All right, you ready?
I'm ready.
Okay. From Michael. Did you ever keep green fire tetras? How long to get them metallic green like in the pictures? Mine are almost see-through, very pale on dark substrate with other fish coloring great.
I don't think we've kept green fire tetras.
No?
I've seen them. I've seen pictures, but I haven't kept them, so I don't know. I wish I could give you a better answer than
already have the dark
no
background.
idea.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, dark background. Yeah, that's the way to go. Let's see. I'm scrolling through here. Chris says, trying to spread the love everywhere. Thank you, everyone. Well, thank you for being here. I'm glad you're hanging with us. It's cool. All right, I got the chat all messed up over here. I'm all stopped up. Maxwell, thank you very much for the super chat. Appreciate it. Glad you're here, hanging with us. Oh, I had a question and I lost it. Where did it go? Let's see here. Bob does. Should we mix fish poop into the substrate to feed plants, or should we vacuum it out? That's a great question. So I don't necessarily mix it in like on purpose. I just kind of let it do its thing. And it depends on the type of substrate. So for instance, and where your plants are. So let's do a hypothetical. Let's say you got a 20-gallon lawn. So you've got this 20-gallon lawn and you've got plants that are mostly around the back. All right, so they're on the back half of the tank. Now, if I were going to do anything, let's take scenario number one, plants are in the back, I've got gravel. I would probably gravel the front half of the 20-gallon lawn and just being really careful to make sure that I'm not getting close to the root systems. All right, so if you've got rooted plants, I don't want to gravel back near the roots. If those roots are really coming in, then guess what? I'm not going to probably gravel back that much at all. So that's what we do with gravel tanks. We try to stay away from the plants and where the roots might be. And you'll be surprised, especially like sword plants, the roots will spread out all along the bottom of the tank. And so therefore, we tend not to really do a whole lot with those types of tanks in terms of gravel backing. Scenario number two is you've got plants still along the back of that 20-gallon lawn, but you've got sand. Well, I don't want to look at fish waste on top of my sand. So in that particular case, I would take a gravel vac and just swirl it above the surface of the sand just to kind of get the fish waste off the surface. And inevitably, some of that is going to sink in, right? So I'm not worried about that. So that's kind of how I handle that to make sure that the plants are getting what they need. Mm-hmm. But you're right. You're thinking I think, in the right direction. That fish waste is plant food, right? I mean, you combine that with the microbes that are going to live down there in the substrate, and you're going to have a good situation.
Ricole's Riot. My fish is suffering from anchor worms, stick-like things that are growing out of its body. Any suggestions?
I have never tried to treat them. I don't know. I wish I had a good solution for you there, but I've never had it, and so I don't want to just speak about, well, I don't know, here's what a website says, because you've probably already done that. But yeah, I'm not sure what the best way to do that is. You know, that's one of the things too, is we actually don't get a ton of disease in our fish room. Yeah, I say that now. Watch, I'm going to bring in some fish, and it's going to destroy an entire rack of quarantine tanks. But other than ick and the occasional internal parasite, we've been very fortunate, let's just say. So it's been okay. All right, let's see. What do we got here? What do we got? Killer Kitty 08. Chris Cry, I wash my hands with Dawn and scentless soaps before getting into my tanks. I've seen Dean from Aquarium Co-op cleans empty tanks with Dawn soap because it rinses off with no harmful residue. Yeah, that's true. If we're talking about washing tanks, you got a lot of options there. Vinegar works fine. Just plain water, you know. But I definitely like the vinegar aspect because you can just rinse that out too. Finn asks, I'm new to aquascaping. What would you recommend to use? That's a you question. That's not me. New to aquascaping.
To use. Well, would that be driftwood, rocks, plants?
So if you could pick something simple, like first tank, you're going to aquascape it. You're a little concerned because, well, you just never done it before. What's the simplest, bestest, safest way to go with that?
Okay. Well, first of all, I like sand, and you can get that at any fish store or big box store. I like turtles. I like the top fin black sand from PetSmart. So just get yourself some sand, and it's usually about a pound of substrate per gallon. So you can kind of ballpark it there. It's like 1 to 2 pounds per gallon. And if you want to use real instead of like the fake plants and the fake rocks and decorations, then the I believe both stores, at least Petco does, a lot of stores will have both the dragon stone and the Seiryu stone in bags. So they have multiple different sizes of pieces in just a bag. So that could work out really well. I like to get that too when I've run low. And plants, keep it super simple. The best, I'm trying to think, and even like what my very first plants were, I assume it would be Anubias. Anubias, I think, is very easy, and it's very easy to find at the big box stores, and you don't have to worry about planting because that might be a little intimidating. It might, sometimes when you first start planting, it's kind of in water, or you're not doing it in water, it can be a little challenging and a little frustrating because you get it planted, then you add the water, and then the plants can come up. It gets, So if you do Anubias, which they will come in the tube plants, Petco, PetSmart, you can get a nice little variety. I would not personally recommend going with the Java ferns because they can be very, very particular, and they'll die on you, and that'll be frustrating. Swords,
well, they die on you. I mean,
well, they're stinkers. Swords can get way too big.
Swords.
So I think Anubias is a great bet. You can get a few different, because the tube plants come in different sizes. You can get different sizes, and you can just attach them, or you can, what I think is the easiest ways, you just wedge them. Like that rhizome has to stay, that thick part of the stem has to stay above the substrate. So you don't have to worry about planting it into the substrate. You can just wedge them between a couple of rocks, or I have a lot of videos out there of how, like, just crazy things. You can use little rubber bands, you can use hair ties, and you can use super glue. Yes, you can use super glue to attach it to a rock, to a piece of driftwood, and it's fish safe and all that good stuff. There you go. Those are my suggestions.
Sounds good to me. Brooklyn, thank you so much for becoming a Primetime or Primate Primetime partner. We're all of those things. Appreciate you being here. That's awesome. Very cool. Maxwell, appreciate the super chat. Theoretically, in a planted 55-gallon tank, is there a possibility of not having to do water changes if the tank is cycling properly? Will the plants not be enough to rid nitrates completely? Yeah, I mean, all right, so it seems to be a growing trend, especially in the last 6 months or so. You see a lot of people coming out with videos. I haven't done a water change in this tank in a year, and here's my unfiltered tank. Lucas, LRB Aquatics, most of his fish house and I've been there, I've seen his tanks. He's, at one point he was like, okay, he ran filters and then he stopped and he was running air stones and then he stopped doing that. And now, granted, he's got a lot of plants. His tanks are not heavily stocked, but at the same time, he's basically running zero filtration and in some cases, zero air stones or anything. And those tanks are up and running and doing fine for a very long time. So yes, it is absolutely possible to have a tank where you don't have to do a lot of water changes. Now, what I will say is plants still are going to use micronutrients, and some of those minerals and things come from fresh water because once they use those things up, they might need a refresh. So could you do, I've got a 55-gallon tank, heavily planted, lightly stocked. Maybe you're doing top offs, and then every once in a while, like, all right, I'm going to do a 25% water change once every 6 months because I re-add in some of those minerals. Or maybe you've just got your fertilizers dialed in to the point where you don't have to. These tanks that you see back here, again, I'm basically running an experiment. When we set them up, I don't know how long it's been. You'd have to go back and look. Like when we came into the new YouTube studio, which would have been at least, has it been a year? It might. I don't know. I don't know how long it's been. 6 months, a year. I don't know. But I did one water change on these tanks, a 25% water change early on after like 3 weeks that they were up. And I haven't done a water change since. I've just been topping them off. The plants are doing well. The fish are doing well. So yeah, it's possible. It's just how do you balance the micronutrients that the plants need? Once you get that dialed in, you could have a good situation. The other thing I will say is, our 50-gallon low boy, the one that has the black mollies in that tank, for the better part of a year, the canister filter that I had there basically stopped running. I mean, it was plugged in, but if you picked up the return, it was like a dribble. In other words, it was doing nothing. We had one air stone in the center. That was the filtration we had. It was fine. Those mollies were breeding like crazy. And at one point, we probably had in that 50-gallon low boy, I don't even know, 75, 100 mollies, black mollies, and along with a couple of personals, Plecos, and maybe 4 or 5 orange laser cory cats. And we were doing water changes in that tank, though. So we were doing water changes, but we did not run really a standard filter in that tank. So, yeah, you can do a lot of stuff with tanks if you really have the experience and really set up the right parameter, right environment. Slam boy, Bacopa. Yeah, Bacopa's cool.
Bacopa is cool.
This one over here uses a lot of Bacopa.
I love Bacopa. I need more Bacopa.
Everybody needs more Bacopa.
I really do. All right, Frago Mushy. Okay, I have a question. I had 15 baby cories and they all died in 2 weeks. Oh, while the parents are healthy. I got the water tested and the water was hard. Could that have caused it?
Maybe. But I say maybe, but I mean, it depends on how hard the water is. Sometimes cory cats just, fry in general, sometimes they just don't make it if it was a weaker batch. The other thing to consider too is if the fry were in with the parents or other community fish, they could have just been eaten. So if you didn't see little baby bodies, and there were other fish in the tank, most likely they were consumed. So yeah, that could be a big part of it. But we've bred cories and our water is pH 8.2, water hardness of, like I say, 10 degrees, both GH and KH, and the fry survived okay. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Little babies.
Little babies, yeah. Baby cories
are so cute.
They're little goofy ones. All right, I'm gonna scroll. I saw, by Bob, which plants consume the most nitrates? That's a great question. Anything that's going to grow really fast. So your fast-growing plants would be your
floating plants.
Yeah, a lot of your floaters. Hornwort, guppy grass, duckweed, salvinia, frogbit, water wisteria, water sprite. These are all, especially the hornwort, water wisteria, water sprite. These are plants that grow extremely fast, so fast that they will often suck the nutrients out of a tank. And then if you're not fertilizing those, especially the water sprite and water wisteria, they just die back completely. Hornwort, at least in our fish room, I mentioned this before, has this thing that it will do when we first add it to a tank. It grows really, really fast. A lot of it dies back, leaves a mess everywhere, but a certain small part of it survives, and then it eventually finds an equilibrium. So that will happen too with water sprite and water wisteria, but it's harder, I think, at least in my opinion, for that to find an equilibrium without just completely dying back if you're not giving it a little bit of liquid fertilizer. Yep. Oh my gosh, this whole thing just skipped all crazy on me. Oink Master Supreme forever. Do you think that trying mystery snails in a 125 gallon with my 7 blood, 3 Texas, and 1 firemouth cichlid would be too risky? Oh yeah, for sure. No doubt your Texas and your firemouths will eat the heck out of those. They'll be very thankful. They'll eat the heck out of those mystery snails. For algae control in a tank like that to me is a perfect one to do bristlenose plecos, because most likely, especially if you've got rock work in there or wood or stuff, places where they can kind of just retreat if they're not feeling 100% safe, and they'll come out at night and just absolutely, if it's not blackbeard algae, they'll just destroy that algae, just eat it up. They won't do that with blackbeard algae, and they won't do it usually with green hair algae. But if it's just like your brown diatom algae, just like the softer green algae, you put in a 125, you throw 4 to 6 bristlenose plecos in there. Make sure they're appropriately sized too. So if your Texas cichlid and your firemouth are close to full grown, you don't want to be throwing in 2.5 inch bristlenose plecos, because you could have a problem there. But if you had 4 to 6, they could do some, decent size. They could definitely control algae. That's our go-to right there.
From Francisco, parrotfish with redfin acara, okay, as tank mates long term?
Parrot, wait, hold on. Are we talking about the blood parrot, or are we talking about the true parrot? If it's the true parrot, probably not. If it's the blood parrot, possibly. True parrotfish, they don't get enough love. I don't think we talk about them enough. But man, those fish are pretty. When I did a fish room tour of Tim's fish room, I think the second one I did, I'm pretty sure in that video he had his true parrot in there, and it was amazing. And I'm trying to think, because I'm pausing, because I think I also filmed it at one point when I think he might have brought that into a GCCA bowl show. That fish was so cool. The true parrot is an amazing fish, but they're a different breed compared to the blood parrot that we're used to talking about with that kind of thing.
From Amanda, a lot of folks talk about substrate grain size, like sand versus gravel. Not a lot of talk about the roundness, very angular to very round. How important do you think this is?
That's a great question, and it's important if you've got anything that's going to be spending time on the bottom of your tank.
Yeah.
The smoother that, whether it's sand or gravel or whatever, the smoother that is, the less damage it's going to do. It's
like quarries.
It's always, can I say that? Let me say, it's always better to have a smoother surfaced substrate than sharp. If you've got any type of fish that are spending time on the bottom, so your cory cats, and not just cory cats, your Synodontis, your any type of pleco that's going to be feeding from the bottom, any geophagus when they're putting that stuff in their mouth. So, yeah, I mean, if there's really pointy, I think it's more a problem not so much for gravel, but for sand, but it is for gravel, because sometimes you look at that gravel like, oh my gosh, this stuff is like little daggers everywhere. Yeah, it could scrape up the bottom side of their body.
Whips World had to go. He has to get up at 3.
So
everybody say goodbye to him, because he's probably already gone and he's going to catch it tomorrow.
Yeah, so bye Whips World.
Bye night.
Yeah. Getting up at 3 o'clock in the morning.
That's really birdie.
Sounds like fun. Philip says, can driftwood alter your tank's pH, causing illness / fungus? Yeah. we did a video about how driftwood impacts pH. And the bottom line of the video that we did was, because you hear two different stories. You'll hear people say, okay, I put driftwood in my tank and it caused no problems. And you'll hear people say, I put driftwood in my tank and my pH crashed. Well, why is that? It has to do with your carbonate hardness, your KH. If your KH is higher, so upper single digits, you start getting into double digits for your KH. If you put driftwood in your fish tank, most likely it's not going to impact your pH very much. If your carbonate hardness is on the lower side, and so now we're maybe mid single digits, low single digit on your carbonate hardness, and you put driftwood in your tank, especially if that driftwood is large relative to the size of the tank, it could absolutely have an impact on your pH and lower it. Now, in terms of the fungus on the driftwood, I haven't found that matters. So it doesn't matter. Like, we get fungus on a lot of our driftwood at a high KH, high pH. You're going to get it on a low one too. That's just what happens with a lot of driftwood. It usually goes away after a week or two. Some fish will probably eat it. I haven't really paid attention close enough because I know it goes away, and then you've used it to kind of scrape stuff away. So it does. It goes away. It's no big deal. Illness for the fish, yes, if your pH. So the pH scale is logarithmic, and what that means is when you go from a pH of 8 down to a pH of 7, you haven't changed the pH by a factor of 1. You've changed it by a factor of 10. So it's actually a relatively large change, and if that happens quickly, that could cause potential problems for fish. So to have that drastic, fast change, and if you put a large piece of driftwood in a tank that has a low KH, that pH, the pH could change very, very quickly within 24 to 48 hours. You could go from, I had a pH of 7 and now I'm at a 5.8 or a 6.2 or something like that. That's a pretty big change. So hopefully that answers your question. We'll take a couple more and then we'll call it an evening, I think.
Wow, that time went
it flies by. Hanging out with our peeps makes the time go by fast.
Mark Sportswear, screen printing and embroidery. I remember you. We met you in Aquatic Experience like 3 years ago. Was that the last time that we went? I don't remember. Yeah. Well,
anyways,
hi. Will there be any Aquatic Experience or anything like that in New Jersey in 22?
I think the closest thing to you is going to be the Keystone Clash. Isn't that in Pennsylvania or somewhere around there? I don't know exactly. I've never been to that.
Yeah, I'm not quite sure where exactly that's at.
That's
somewhere around there.
Kind of up by you, and then the next closest thing is going to be the OCA, which is in like the Cleveland area. But
Aquatic Experience, right?
No. Aquatic Experience hasn't been a thing since 2019, and I think they just shut it down because it was so the Aquatic Experience was cool. I really liked it because it was a trade show. So like the Aquashella did something completely different, which is awesome. Aquatic Experience was more of a trade show, more displays. It was originally, I think, intended more for people who were in the aquarium trade, and it kind of slowly morphed into something I don't think it was ever meant to be. That was just hobbyists who got interested in it, started going more and more. Well, then you had Aquashella show up, and that was really geared towards the hobbyists. There was a lot more for the hobbyists to do. So I don't think the Aquatic Experience is, and I'd like to see it come back, but I don't think it's going to. So I think the Keystone Clash is the closest thing you're going to get up that way, and it's not anything like an Aquashella or anything like that. It's smaller, from what I understand. Chris says, random quick question: Cubs or White Sox? Oh boy, I'm going to make people mad.
Yeah.
No matter how I answer this. I'm a White Sox fan. I was a White Sox. What happened was when I was a kid, I was on the White Sox and my T-ball team for 3 years, and that just, that makes you a White Sox fan. But I don't mind the Cubs, and so I'm a very strange person. We stayed up and we watched the Cubs the entire playoffs back when they won the World Series back in the day. Same thing, obviously, with the White Sox. I don't root against the Cubs. I mean, I've been to Cubs games. I've got Cubs hats, and I'm just one of those, I guess, people who don't mind them both. But I like the White Sox are my favorite baseball team. All right, what else we got? What else is here? We'll do one more awesome question. I got it.
You didn't send out a thank you to all of our
Hold
awesome
on, I'm still
moderators.
answering questions. Alice B. Tips on doing water changes on a tank with a fish that jumps. Also, how do I go about changing out my current canister filter to a new one? Tank is bare bottom. Ooh, okay, that's good information. Water changes with fish that jump. Well, it depends on the type of lid that you have. So I mean, obviously you got fish that jump and you're concerned about it. You've probably got a lid on your tank. So you're going to have to obviously open up the lid. I don't know the size of the tank, but if you're opening up the front part of the lid, then you can put something, anything over half of the tank that you're not, so if you're doing a gravel vac and you're draining on the left-hand side of the tank, maybe you've got, I don't know, a Tupperware lid or something that's covering the other half, just so that it's not getting all freaked out. So that's something you can consider. And then you just switch it. Okay, now I got to go to the right-hand side. Let me put that Tupperware lid or a piece of plastic or something that's, can get wet and not fall apart. Now I got to put that on the other side. So that's what I do. And then if I have to walk away from the tank, then I'm going to go ahead and close the lid. When I'm filling, I will also use that same plastic top to make sure the fish are not jumping. In terms of the canister filter, if you're going to switch those out, I guess the good thing is you can transfer all of the media from your current canister filter into the new one. In this particular case, actually having a bare bottom tank is probably going to make this situation potentially easier, because you right now are most likely relying very heavily on the microbes that are in the canister filter. Therefore, it's probably very heavily seeded. So as long as you can pull all of that media out into the new one, you're going to get most of those microbes. You're going to lose the microbes that were actually attached to, like, let's say, the canister filter trays and the inside part of the canister filter. But as long as you transfer the media over, you are probably going to be in pretty decent shape there. Mm-hmm. Super chat. Thank you, Shannon. Thank you very much. I appreciate it. Thanks for all the great information you guys share with us and your suggestions. Hey, my eyes are and your suggestions for my 40 breeder. Hope to see you again in Dallas. Yep,
yeah.
Definitely. That is the plan, to come hang out with everybody in all the Aqua Shella land. So anyway,
here I got one last question here from Chris. Recommendations: shelving unit for multi tanks. Home Depot heavy duty garage shelves work.
Yeah, those big steel ones with like that, where the ones just kind of, they've got like the little nubs and they rest in there. Mm-hmm. The heavy duty ones, some of those ones from Home Depot, they're rated at like 1,000 pounds per shelf. The only thing you have to be careful about is if they are like the wire. So the shelving is either wire in the center, you're going to want to put wood down so that the wood is actually resting on the cross beams. And hopefully there's some cross beams in the center as well for that. Ideally, it would be nice if the tank frames were resting on those cross beams as well, but those things are no joke. I know a lot of people who use those and put some seriously large tanks on those things, provided that they are rated properly. Yeah, we've got the smaller ones and we've done videos on the ones that we use, but those ones I wouldn't trust them to hold anything more than a 20-gallon. So yeah, it's a good solution. But anyway, thank you. We're gonna call it a night here. It's getting late. Thank you to all the moderators. So many of them here. Dave and Mary Page and Killer Kitty and Oink Master and everybody else that was, there was a bunch. I think Wendy might have stopped by. I thought I saw, I think maybe, really? Yeah, there was somebody in here. Wendy. There was somebody. Thank you to everybody for the super chats and super stickers and all that stuff. And you guys brought a lot of great questions. So we're going to be back. Same time, same place next Wednesday. Bring your questions. Write them down throughout the week and bring them here. If we miss questions, I'm sorry. We try to answer as many as we can. Thank you once again, and welcome all new members. We will see you guys next week. Have a great weekend.
Yeah, and a great rest of the week.